Oh hey, I'm glad you're here. Welcome to Season 13 of VHUs. Get ready for a wild one as this season sees fantastic returning guests, new faces, and a host of tragically underseen movies that we will discuss. We introduce a new format and open things up entirely. Where Season 12 was a return to classic form, this season is the furthest deviation from where we once started. But, as my wise wife once said, nobody cares. My hope is that you listen because you know we celebrate movies and the creative people behind them rather than attempt to rank and mock. There's people doing that, so we're over here on the other side. And speaking of creative people, you might notice we have a new logo. It's designed by the super talented Mick Cassidy. You can hear his voice on our Cool World episode and find his work at blackmacco.com. That's BLACKMACCO.com. It's wonderful, and we now have it as stickers, so hit me up if you're interested in those. Also, our Threadless shop is up to date with all of our episode artwork, so be sure to get your shirts, mugs, stickers, hoodies, and help spread the word of all the awesome guests and these movies that we talk about. You're also about to notice that we have new intro and outro music. The last seasons have featured Jerry Smith and his project Rainy Day for Ghosts. You can find those themes and much more music from Jerry at rainydayforghosts.bandcamp.com. So go there, get that music. This season features new music composed for VHS by this episode's guest. That's right, Rodney Anonymous of The Seventh Victim and Dead Milkmen made our intro and outro, and I absolutely love it. And speaking of the Dead Milkmen, at the time of this recording, I didn't know they had released a new album, Quaker City Quiet Pills. Be sure to check it out. It's really good. From Grandpa's Not a Racist, he just voted for one, to Astral Dad, through to Hen's Teeth and Goofa Dust. They still rule, and they have those subversive hooks. Is that a thing? I don't know. What am I, Pitchfork? Is that even a thing? Get off my lawn. I'm kidding. Remember, I'm glad you're here, and I'm just rambling. So I said my thing. Let's get to why we're here. The start of Season 13. The movie is The Last Minute. My guest is Rodney Anonymous, and this is VHS Presents New Releases and Late Returns. Hello and welcome to VHS, the podcast where we talk about entertainment in a variety of different ways. This episode is one of our new releases and late returns where we first champion what we're currently enjoying before making a late return to a forgotten gem. I'm your host, Dirk Marshall, and I must encourage you to find us wherever you are on the internet, whatever you engage with. We also have original episode artwork on Threadless, so you can support the show and the artists we support by wearing your favorite episode or getting a magnet. Maybe they do stickers. I'm not sure all the things they do. But we're also on Patreon. I've been having a great time posting articles over there about various movies and franchises, as well as doing a monthly giveaway for supporters with Blu-rays, hot sauces, stickers, postcards, freeze-dried candy, and all kinds of strange things. So I hope you'll think about joining us over there. My guest for this episode marks the return of Rodney Anonymous. Nice to see you again.
Great to be back, because I listen to every show, and sometimes I'm listening, I'm like, oh, I wish I was on that one. Oh, an island full of talking animals from the 1950s. Oh, man.
Yeah.
I wish, yeah. Or I'm like, are they going to mention War of the Gargantuas? One of my favorites. You recently had the Japanese films. So,
yeah. I would have felt mean subjecting you to The Secret of Magic Island, but that's
I'm jealous of you because you got to see super fights.
Yeah.
You were on the Dog Zone 9000 podcast.
Yeah.
People, you need to check that one out because you were subjected to something I was not aware that film exists. And every day I walk around going, Super Fighter!
Yes. It's pretty amazing. The song is unbelievable. People, of course, know you from the Dead Milkmen, the band Seventh Victim, the radio show Rodney Anonymous Tells You How to Live on whynotradio.net. Anything else you have going on?
I'm terrible with self-promotion because my friends are always like, if you were any good at self-promotion, we'd be having this conversation in your gold-plated Zeppelin. So I actually wrote down currently producing some stuff, working on some stuff I legally can't tell you about that's a
Oh,
cover. Managing career of Heinrich.
oh,
Yeah, a 1980s synth pioneer from Berlin. Fortunately, after I signed on, I found out he was from Berlin, Pennsylvania. So we have him out playing shows. I'm just trying to recoup some of the money. His Vienna Lovich, his wife and poet, has been showing up. So that's a Philadelphia thing. Yeah, I hope it never leaves Philadelphia. So did the radio free stuff? I like to plug free stuff. I do
yeah.
over on my YouTube site. I've been doing a thing called Reblitzed, where I've been doing covers of Blitz Club songs. So I think tomorrow morning, cover of Editions of You by Roxy Music comes out, and it's all free. And then once I'm done that, I'm going to move on to some Halloween songs I want to put out.
Oh, yeah.
Just want to write songs about cryptids. That's all I want to do. I want to take some time, write some songs about, and I did some voice acting work. I don't know when that's going to show up. I'm always busy, so whenever I'm like not doing all that, I've got an old DX11 that I slowly bring
Right.
back to mint condition. So those are pretty much everything that, like the protagonist in the film that we will be discussing later. I'm a very busy person.
Yeah.
So.
That's excellent. People should also check out our episode on the incredible movie Sons of Steel. So
Yes, you can't see it because it's this way, but yeah, I have the album up on the wall in the studio. So yeah.
That's awesome. What brings us to new releases. So these are things that are currently bringing us joy from the various realms of entertainment. And we'll start with books. Is there anything you're currently reading?
Yeah, I actually would like to, and you'll be able to see these thanks to the magic of the internet. This is a book by Lisa Morton. I'll explain why I'm reading these, called Calling the Spirits, A History of Seances.
Okay.
And also just read, and this is a very, very thin book that you people can, it makes it easy to shoplift. Yeah. The big books are so difficult to shoplift. Philadelphia Spiritualism, The Curious Case of Katie King by Stephanie Hoover. And there you can see that. And boy, is it a curious case. We like to think of Philadelphians as, ourselves being intellectual, but many of our ancestors were idiots. Okay. And the reason that I was reading these, my friend Rob Zabrecki, who used to be in a band called Possum Dixon, is also a magician. And he's got this like weird show where he does these very odd sort of, seances. And so you have to bring a gift, and he has guest stars and stuff, and they're just really odd. And you can't see much of it, but my home studio is done up in a style of like a 19th century occultist. It keeps a lot of people out of here. A lot of people will come in to, I'd like to lay down a vote. No, I wouldn't. No, there's a lot of things in here that make people uncomfortable. So I think that's what sent me down that path. So
that's great.
A lot of the early spiritualism stuff took place here in Philly, and anything that has to do with Philly history, I'm immediately on board for. So
I will definitely check those out. I am reading, and you can also see this. It's called Agitator. It's by Tom Mess. It's about the cinema of Takashi Miike, and I just
the audition guy. Yeah.
Yep. So I just have started it. It's really well written. I enjoy it because it kind of goes from film to film. Not obviously all of his films, because he's made so many, but it's interesting to hear anyone talk about some of these things, because I just, a lot of it I'd come across like Gozu or something, and then no one would have seen it, and so I'd just be like sitting there with Gozu in my head. So it's nice.
It was weird because for the longest time, what we got from Japan, and you covered this a little bit on the show where you talked about the Japanese movies, was the best. You got your Akira Kurosawa, you got your. And then all of a sudden, Akira came out of nowhere. And I remember I was in London when that came out, and there was like a TV debate on it, where people were discussing it, and this woman was horrified. She's like, the violence, and this guy's just like, where the hell have you been for the last 30 years?
Yeah.
Like, what haven't you seen? So it was just kind of weird, The Strange Glut. And you also mentioned Tsuma the Iron Man, which is a very strange film. And I need to get back in because I still see stuff come out of Japan.
Yeah.
That just fascinates me. So
yeah, there's so much, and so many of those things I have to own, because I'm just like, it's so bizarre, and I don't want it to go away from streaming. So it's just like Meatball Machine. I don't know, any of these things are just like, okay, I'm gonna get it, I'm gonna buy it, and I'm gonna have it.
I like how they're not tied to the Western narrative too. Yeah, so all of a sudden at the end, like in the last 2 minutes, it was a ghost, but it was the ghost of a robot. Like, okay.
Yep.
Good for you. Okay. You've got the ancient culture. I don't.
Yeah.
So good for you. Good. I'm on board with that.
That's so true. That brings us to games. I don't know if you play any type of game.
The last games I was playing, and this is how long ago it was, were the Layers of Fear games, which I loved.
I
I
don't know
love
what that
Layers of
is.
Fear. I tended to play a lot of horror games.
Okay.
Layers of Fear was basically he went mad playing. You played a person who went mad, and then there was a little companion piece that was the mad guy's daughter going through his house. And then Layers of Fear 2 was in binaural audio. So you wanted to play it with headphones on and narrated by Tony Todd, aka the Candyman.
Oh, rad.
And you want to have some laundry problems, Tony Todd in your ear, like he's right behind you. And I like that. But I really, right now, my digital audio workstation, my DAW, which for me is FL Studio, that's been pretty much my video game. I don't have time. I always tell the guys, look, I can have some free time or we can have songs.
Right.
What's it going to be? What? Make the choice, because I am constantly busy. And then I'm also busy with work. I really wish I had time to get back into. I love horror-based video games. I had the Blair Witch video game where you get a dog, which was good, but I just really don't have time to do them, unfortunately. Yeah, what have you been doing video game wise?
I'm currently just Diablo 4. I play with Sean Baby and my friend JL, and so that was kind of fun. I was a necromancer, so I could bring skeletons out of bodies and explode corpses, and it's a very dark game. There's tons of demons and viscera, and so that's been kind of a blast. And then I created a druid character who can use like earth skills, so I can summon spikes. I feel like such a dork even talking about these things out loud, but
no, I don't know if you can't really see it. I'll move out of the way, but you'll see back there that case that just appeared behind. All right, that's all full of Dungeons and Dragons figures from the time I was like, I've had them since I was 14 or something. So
yeah, you get it. But you can do all these intricate builds with the different skills and stuff. So you can, right now it's like my character is ridiculous where I'm just exploding everyone. I just run into crowds and everything just explodes, and that's kind of fun. I haven't had a ton of time, but it's pretty good. And then I think I'm really good. And then Sean Baby, I get stuck. So then he pops on and then he just kills an entire dungeon, and I'm just walking in the waste of him.
I have been a fan of Sean Baby. I can't imagine like playing a game with him. I discovered Sean Baby in, I don't know, I would say like the mid to late 90s or something, from Portal of Evil.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Baby was actually the guy who found Ben Schumann, who is an internet legend.
Yeah.
And I used to regularly read all of his columns and everything. There's this great thing where Sean Baby was the Secret Service dragged Sean Baby in. And it's just, it was one of the greatest things ever written. So I can't imagine like what Sean Baby is like playing a game.
Oh, yeah, it's hilarious. And I told him that we were going to record another episode, and he said if you ever want to be in the dog zone, the invitation's out there. So.
Oh, I would love to be in the dog zone.
All
I don't
right,
know what they do to me. Yeah, just pass that on.
Okay, I will. I'll do that today. Which brings us to music, which I'm so excited to talk music with you, as I love your show.
Thank you.
I think I'm in the deep cuts of like industrial and electro stuff, and the things you find, I'm just shocked. I didn't know it was out there. I didn't know these remixes existed. So thank you for that.
I often find some of these people on my sofa, which is weird.
Yes.
It's kind of odd to know these folks, to actually have them in your life.
Right.
Once you have Matt Finale, aka Caustic, in your life, it's a whole other thing. Or the folks from Ego Likeness. I was a huge Ego Likeness fan. I think I started seeing them when there were like 1,000 people in the band. So I was on board early.
Rad.
And I didn't know they were on a email chain from Matt. Matt and I he was doing a show and I was playing with him. I was on stage with him,
cool.
on stage with him. And he's like, we're also going to have Don and Steven from Ego Likeness. And I was like, I'm so frightened now, nervous. You can't get a pin up my ass with a sledgehammer. And they were, which is a saying from the lovely hometown I grew up in.
Nice.
And they were copied on that. So that was my introduction to them. Been really lucky with people passing music along to me, which is awesome.
Yeah, I took my brother-in-law to see Suicide Commando.
Oh, yeah. How was it?
It was awesome. He was so rad, super energetic. It always weirds me out when the artist is just walking through the crowd, because I get starstruck. I can't help it. But like, I'm standing 4 feet from him, and I was just like, "That's Suicide Commando." Like, it's just.
I'm that way all the time.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. And I'll actually walk up to these people and ask them if they know who they are. Do you know who you are?
That's so funny.
As if we're in a soap opera. They get struck in the head or something.
Right. So what is something that you're currently listening to?
The new Bestial Mouse single, Split Skin. Oh my God.
I don't know that.
Oh, yeah, okay. Bestial Mouths. It's a young lady named Lynette. I'm going to screw up her
Oh,
last name.
I've been saying bestial mouths. I've been saying it wrong.
I think it might be Bestial Mouths, but in Philly we just say Bestial.
It's
I don't know.
probably
It could be
bestial.
Bestial. I say best. I pronounce it Bestial
You're probably
because
right.
I know it's the bestiary, but I used to know people pronounce it Bestial. Well, you can pronounce it however you want. I might be the one pronouncing it wrong. Basically, I just blanked on my friend's name, who was in Damon, was now working with them. But the new album is called Rot. I think it's like Rot in My Skin.
Hmm.
And the new song is called Slit Skin, the new single, and it is freaking awesome. And we're actually going to. I got to see Bestial Mouse play here in Philly at like 7:30 at night on a Tuesday
Nice.
in front of maybe like a dozen people, and I'm like, and it was one of the best shows I'd ever seen. I'm like, this is wrong. And fortunately, and this is something my wife's doing because she helped in on this. We have a thing in Philly called Dracula's Ball
Oh
every
yeah.
Halloween. And normally we're away for Halloween, but we'll actually be here for this one. And Bestial Mouths are going to play it. So I'm looking very forward. Oh, Brant Showers from Damon and also from Solve has been working with that project. That album is going to be incredible. There's also a band from Philly. Quickly want to mention The Ire. We just did a show with them here at Laurel Hill Cemetery. And I played them on my show and didn't know they were from Philly, which is embarrassing to me because when we tour, I always try to find out where bands are from. So if we're going to be playing a city, I will say, hey, can we have this band on the bill?
Hmm.
Because you can't trust the promoters. The promoters are like, we got a band, they play in diapers and they sing songs about putting crap in people's mailboxes. You're like, oh God, why?
Yeah.
I usually have some people lined up. Oh, the other thing is I'm wearing my IMX shirt. I just saw IMX. The new IMX album Fault Lines is really good. Not my favorite IMX album, but I just got to see them live for the second time. That is a weird show. There's a guy a few feet away from me goes, he's like, I never thought I'd say this in an IMX show, but things are getting really weird. So that's kind of like the latest thing there's probably like a million other things. And then my friends are going to like, why didn't you mention the
Right.
stuff I did?
Yeah, I like Bestial Mouths. Was messaging with the singer, I forget her name.
Nanette, I believe.
Nanette. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I did a remix for him and I'm terrible with names. So yeah.
yeah, I was gonna give her some sauce when she played here, but dietary restrictions, so she couldn't take it. But she's playing next month here, so
You got to go see
at
her.
Coffin Club. Yeah, yeah, I plan on it for
Yeah.
sure.
Do not miss that show. Where's she playing?
Coffin Club.
Oh, okay. Well, all right.
Yeah, they actually did a whole full stage now downstairs in Coffin Club. It looks really great. That's where Covenant just played.
So I'm trying to remember who's coming through town. We never get anybody. So Philadelphia is a gray zone for
Mm.
really good music. Like bad trends will catch on quickly in Philadelphia and hang on forever. So it's a nightmare. But it takes forever to get anything good. And a lot of times I'll be looking at a band's tour schedule, and it's like Boston, New York, Allentown,
Yeah.
Baltimore, Washington.
Yeah.
I'm like, and somebody, it's killing me, is coming, I think, to Vox Populi. And they're coming the date that Vienna and I are out of town.
Mm. The music I have to mention is because of you, and it's Randolph and Mortimer.
Oh my God. They just hit, or it's really one person. But yeah, and that was another thing. I didn't know Randolph and Mortimer was a Philadelphia reference. Apparently, there's a movie in which two characters are Randolph and Mortimer.
Oh,
It's
wow.
here in Philly. And I didn't know that. And again, I walked around thinking Randolph and Mortimer was two people. Talking about the latest album that they did? Or?
Yeah, The Incomplete Truth.
Yeah, their remix, by the way, of try to remember, it was Bestial Mouths or Bestial Mouths. They're being boiled remixed, but every remix they touch
Mm-hmm.
turns to gold. The guy from Randolph and Mortimer, the guy behind it, was fascinated by Fugazi and the KLF. Those are his two main influences,
Whoa.
Fugazi and the KLF. This actually happened to a human being where they went, yeah, I'm going to be listening to those.
That's
I
wild.
love both those. Well, I like KLF a little bit more than
Me
Fugazi.
too. Yeah. And I love the history of them burning all the money, and yeah, Caleb rules.
Yeah, I got fascinated by them early over in the UK in the 90s. And I'm like, I think I was reading Robert Anton Wilson's Illuminati trilogy. But yeah, there's a whole lot of weird stuff to them where the one with Bill was managing Echo and the Bunnymen, and he decided that they would take a tour of the Orkney Islands in the shape of a Playboy rabbit head. They were really, there's so much to that band.
Yes. The other thing I'm listening to is Left Field. They are on this soundtrack, and
Yes.
we'll be talking about. And they just put out an album in 2022 called This Is What We Do, and then they just did a sort of dubbed version of it called This Is What We Do Excursion that just came out. I like to put them both on I just think that left field is massively underrated in electronic music.
Yes.
It's so important to the film that we'll eventually be talking about.
A friend of mine was just pretty much saying the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just pretty weird. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, their album Rhythm and Stealth, if you look at like when it came out, which was like 97 or 99, and what else was happening in electronic music, there was just nothing that sounded like what they did. There's just and it's so UK. They're not trying to like sound like they're in the States, you know, it's like some
Yeah.
bands try to pass it in a certain way. That's not these dudes. So another shout out for them, which brings us to television. Anything episodic you're watching?
There was a thing called Copen. Well, you had a guest on to talk about The Trial, which my wife had stumbled upon and which I love. Sorry, Jury Duty.
Oh
Which,
yes.
although The Trial would fit, it was very
Yeah,
Kafkaesque.
yeah.
That I did love, and I did, stick with it. And you folks have to see the final episode. The other thing I was thinking of Copenhagen Cowboy that was running on Netflix that I really enjoyed. It was about a lucky coin, a person who is lucky, and I have a lucky coin. I have a lot of faith in luck. That was really good, and it was Lynchian, but it was also very giallo. Lots of neon, really visually fascinating. And then tonight is the premiere of the new season of What We Do in the Shadows, which is my favorite TV show. I believe the character of Nadja is based on my wife. So tonight I'm doing this, then the Milkmen thing that we record for our weekly thing, and then boom, downstairs, glass of wine, What We Do in the Shadows.
Nice. That's a good day. I have nothing for television. There's nothing episodic that we've been watching, and we just kind of have been in a funk. We have a ton of movies that we're going to talk about. My wife and I are doing a recap at the end of the season, but just episodically, we were putting on Investigation Discovery the other night because we were just like, I don't know, like just murders. So I have nothing there, which rolls us right into movies. Anything you've currently been watching?
Yeah, I sent you an email about it to see if you'd seen it, which was Beau is Afraid, the new Ari Aster movie.
Right.
Ari Aster, for years, you walk around for most of your life and The Exorcist is your favorite horror movie. And then out of nowhere comes Hereditary. And you're like, well, and my wife and I saw it in the theater, and I basically called her from work. And I said, meet me at this theater at like 7 p.m. tonight. We're going to see this movie. You don't know anything about it, but I think you're going to like it because I heard word of mouth on it. And I love that. And I also love his movie Midsummer, which is a movie a lot of people get wrong. A lot of people are like, oh, it's great. She joined that cult. And I'm like, think about what you're saying. Yeah. I really like both those. Vienna, my wife, before I watch a horror movie, it's like every other night we'll sit together and watch something if we can. Last night, she'd seen Ex Machina a while back. Watched it. I watched it with her. And she'd never seen Annihilation. So finally I talked her into watching Annihilation. And she really enjoyed that. But with Annihilation, there's the scene.
Yeah.
It's like when you talk about Bone Tomahawk. And say, well, there's the scene. And it didn't really bother her that much. She's like, I've seen a lot worse than that. I'm like,
nice.
We have, but in that context, it was really creepy. And then there's a film that she'd kill me if I don't mention, we stumbled upon called Unwelcome, about a couple that moves from London to Ireland. And it was, I think what's happening now is a lot of, maybe thanks to YouTube, a lot of young directors are finding, filmmakers are finding the films that we would watch, like the made-for-TV movies from the 70s. So, stuff that is sort of Dan Curtis thing, your sort of Trilogy of Terror, your sort of, Don't Look in the Basement, that sort of stuff, or Don't Look Now, Don't Look Now is the Donald Sutherland film. Yeah. Whatever the film was with Kim Darby, with the little people. And I think they're finding these weird 70s horror films, and it's influencing them, because I see shades of the old made-for-TV movies. So
yeah, no, that's a great point. I thought.
Oh, and I did mention Beau is Afraid, right? Yeah. But just say Beau is Afraid. Is it a horror? Is it a comedy? I don't know. I loved it. I love any film where it's like James Joyce's Ulysses, where some sort of hapless person wanders through the landscape. So
yeah, I still haven't checked it out, but I need to. First one I want to mention, we have a couple friends come over and they're always like, show me something. And so I try to pick something that they'll enjoy, that's fun. And they like to watch. I kind of sit closer to the TV than them and kind of look over my shoulder, and they love the part where I look over my shoulder because something's about to happen. Yeah. So I showed them Turbo Kid from 2015.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a post-apocalyptic wasteland. An orphan teen must battle a ruthless warlord played by Michael Ironside to save a girl of his dreams. It played really well. They had such a good time. It's so funny. It's got that retro thing, but it was kind of before the Stranger Things stuff, so it was like I don't know. It just played super well, so I know it's not a deep cut for people to discover, but if you haven't watched Turbo Kid in a while, give it a try because it is still really really funny.
You attempted to show them Blackbird.
No, no, I haven't. But one of them doesn't do gore, and so I showed them Psycho Goreman, and it worked.
Oh no.
It worked in a comedic sense, so we're kind of like
Yeah.
that's the way Turbo Kid was too. There was
Oh,
definitely a couple parts where I was like, yeah,
oh,
don't look at this
yeah.
because I forgot that they rip his intestines out with a
No,
bicycle, but you know. And then also Arrow just put out a box set, a video store box set of some amazing Empire pictures. And so in there is Robot Jocks from 1989, directed by Stuart Gordon. In the distant future, mankind has forsaken global wars of battle with single combat of giant robots. It's so great to see these like films now that we're just inundated with like CG stuff where anything can do anything. And back then they had to build these like miniature robots and then shoot them, and the creativity involved. And it's a movie I grew up with in my dad's video store. So to see it like on a Blu-ray with like a nice picture, it just filled me with all the good feelings. So I wanted to shout out Robot Jocks. And then lastly, Incredible Shaolin Thunderkick from 1982. It's one that I thought was a different movie by Godfrey Ho, and then when I found out it was its own thing, I was like, well, I said I watched all the Godfrey Ho's, so I got to track this down. So it's from 82. A village is being oppressed by four villains led by Chow Chung until a beggar comes to town and teaches a young man and woman the 7-star Grand Mantis style of fighting. It is definitely a, kung fu karate thing with weird voiceovers and strange characters, odd off-kilter comedy, but I love this stuff. So I really enjoyed it, and anytime you get to say Incredible Shaolin Thunderkick, that's a good time.
and what was the seven?
The 7-star Grand Mantis style.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, there's
All
also a moon style in there. I don't know. There's a lot of
right.
styles to the fighting, but I enjoyed that. Watched that last night.
I love it. Yeah, we say when they remaster something. I love it when something I've owned on like a crappy, falling apart video cassette,
Yep.
or I had it on the first CD. They just recently, I think last year, re-released. There's a film I love called "Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things," Alan
Mm-hmm.
Ormsby film,
Oh
and
yeah.
they released it. They cleaned that copy up, and it looks beautiful. And that was on my birthday. We kind of discovered that was out. Gone for that.
Going for it. So that's the Arrow box set, the
Oh, the
video
Arrow
store
box.
box set, and so they made it look like a little video store, and all the characters from the different movies are kind of on the outside of it. And it's got Dungeon Master, it's got Dolls, Cellar Dweller, Arena, and Robot Jocks all in there.
Yes, that is a great combo.
Yeah.
That's a great night. That's a great night at the video store.
Yeah, and there's like bonus features and all this, like just things that these movies you didn't think they would receive, and then they get all this respect, and I'm like, I love this. I love all of this. I will waste all my time watching this. Which brings us to the late return, the last
Ah,
minute. What's your history with the last minute?
I had not. I'm always amazed when somebody finds something I hadn't seen, because I always assume I find everything. Like we used to be on tour, and the other guys would call me down, because it'd be something on TV. Like, Rodney, what is this? And I'd be like, well, that's Terror Train,
Yeah.
and that's Horror Express, or a lot of
Mhm.
movies with trains they were curious
Just
about. So I would say that's what this is. And a lot of times, if we were in a foreign country, my memory traps all sorts of stuff. I would just do the dialogue. I would play all the characters, and
Nice.
I'm amazed I hadn't heard of it,
Yes.
which is kind of weird. It kind of flown under the radar. And what I did was I didn't do any homework on it going
Right.
into it. And I'm usually a big proponent of doing homework, but this gets weird because I spotted some stuff. And then when I went back and did the homework later on, I was like, that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
Those clouds have parted.
Yeah, okay, so my history with this is I worked at an independent record store when this movie came out, and we received a promo copy without a cover or anything, just in a hard gel case of the soundtrack. And because they wanted us to bring it into the store from Palm Pictures. And so I put it in, and it was like everything I listened to, and I was just like, why there's two what soundtrack has two
Yeah,
Aphex
the
Twin songs
soundtrack
on
is
it?
amazing.
It's incredible, and like I became obsessed with this thing, and so I finally tracked it down. I found a store that had this DVD, and I rented it. So this is now like a year after when the movie came out. So I finally saw it, and I was obsessed with it. I was just like, oh my gosh, it's like uh, I love anything where they break down time and give you
Yeah.
this like whole thing. And then I just forgot. I forgot about the movie, and then was trying to remember it with the shreds of information that I had, I was like, okay, there's a guy that raves, I think, underground, and he gets piercings, and people were like, what are you talking about? And then I was like, but it's in the UK, and people were like, are you talking about Dark Days? And I'm like, no, I'm not talking about the documentary about people living
Yeah.
underground. I'm talking about this like kind of rave
Yeah.
thing. And I didn't remember any of the bands on the soundtrack. I just remember that I loved it. And so then I finally just went to Reddit and went to the genius detectives on there, and I was like, here's what I kind of
But yeah.
remember. 2 minutes. 2 minutes later, someone goes, the last minute. And then you look at it and you're like, how has nobody ever talked about this movie ever? Because
It
the
is
first thing you learn about it is that it's directed by Stephen Norrington, who directed Blade and
comes
The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, unfortunately, which
up.
stopped
Yeah.
his career.
Yeah.
What just it I couldn't believe it. And so what I did was I tracked down the DVD. So the DVD, I'm
Oh my God.
showing you the case, is bonkers. So
It's so unattractive.
it's so unattractive, and then all it talks about on the back is how fully interactive the DVD is, how it contains 4 hours of bonus features. It takes
No.
it takes you deep into the bowels of the London underground cult scene and deeper still in the catacombs. Takes a The menu is closer to a video game. It's like the
What?
weird. It's so bizarre, and so I was like showing
But
my
that makes sense.
yeah
If you see the film,
yeah
it makes sense that there be the marketing wouldn't of the DVD wouldn't quite line up with the reality of the film.
yeah.
Yeah.
It says there's a portal to the underworld where you discover 14 hidden scenes, which I did. And it's crazy because you click on things and they do nothing, and then you click on things again and they go to a different page. And this is, 2001, so it's very odd, the menu situation. And so then I was really obsessed with it because there's music videos on there for the soundtrack.
Holy hell.
It's so like when I showed my wife how bonkers this DVD is, she was like, "Did you send that to Rodney?" And I was like, "No, we're recording tomorrow." And
Yeah.
she's like, "Well, I mean, he's got to see this. It's really strange." And I was like,
It
"Yeah,
is
I don't know."
odd.
Here's the soundtrack.
Oh wow. Let me see.
Look at what's happening on the front of this thing.
Yeah.
And then the back has the track listings, but they're like inverted.
These are what happens to kids that get kicked out of art school. They make these because this is it, the mystery deepens. But and then again, it doesn't. Like this is perfect for the movie.
Totally fits the movie, but it's so
It doesn't fit
weird.
reality. It's like a David Lynch thing or something where it makes sense in his universe.
Yeah.
If once you take it out of the universe of the last minute, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's so true. And the soundtrack has like audio clips in it, so it starts off with him saying like, "What did you do this week?" and then it goes
Oh,
right into left field, and I was just like, "What is this thing?" And so now I feel like him going insane because I'm just like I'm talking about is the last minute, and I'm listening to the music, and
when I was watching it, I wondered why nobody had taken samples from that movie.
yeah.
Samples from that movie should end up, you should be in a club dancing somewhere, and samples from that movie should be in the songs.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to speak to Stephen Norrington. He does not do interviews, but
No.
I would love to talk to this person because I think he's extremely creative, especially for when this was made. And the Blood Rave scene in Blade is completely iconic. And when I saw it in the theaters, Blade, the Blood Rave scene, I knew something was going on. I was like, this guy, somebody who made this isn't from here because they use New Order's Confusion,
Yeah.
what is it? It's the Thomas Anthony remix. And no one knew that here in the States.
No.
No one knew what that cover was. I haven't even talked about the film. So the synopsis of this movie: after hitting the big time, an artist, Max Beasley, encounters the London underworld and hits rock bottom. It stars Max Beasley and a really memorable performance by Jason Isaacs,
Yes.
which is nuts. It's super
Wow.
UK, unflinchingly British.
It's weird when you see a movie made in 2000, you're really seeing sort of the last movie of the 90s. When you're watching a movie
Yes.
that's made, in the beginning of a new decade, you're seeing everything from that last decade just crammed in there. And it is the most 90s movie ever made.
Yeah, yeah, it really, really is. It's like if you looked at independent 90s films, this is that. So let's just open it up with first thoughts. when you first started this thing that you knew nothing about?
First thought, it begins, it looks like you're going to be looking at something, because I went in completely blind.
Yes, yeah.
And it looks like you're going to be looking at something that was filmed, based on a play, because it opens with a very small area,
Hmm.
a cabin in Greenland. And then Kayak Girl comes in. And I mention that because she's called Kayak Girl
Yes.
in the credits.
Yeah.
We'll get to the credits eventually, but the credits are just as insane as the movie.
Yes.
I'm writing stuff down. I was taking notes the whole time. So yeah, like the guy's like, it's like the Hateful Eight. The door opens, all the snow comes in, and he's like, it's almost like nail the door shut. Kayak Girl comes in. The guy talks about the time that you have in your life. He's like, get yourself a pen and a calculator, and you can figure out that every day is this long, and if you sleep for this long. And I'm immediately on board and can relate to this guy.
Yeah.
Because I think that I do a lot of stuff. I don't rest. My father was very much like that too. I'm constantly jumping from thing to thing. And again, it may be a Philly thing, I don't know, but I'm constantly. So he's making this little speech in the beginning that isn't bad. But at first when I'm seeing it, I'm like, oh, is this based on a play?
The information I'm about to share with you should be considered fundamental and potentially dangerous. So much so that once you've heard it, there's a tasty chance you might rethink the rest of your life. Either that or you'll just head down to your local battle and get completely cowed. Either way, the good news is you can verify the facts with simple household items. Pocket calculator, pencil, piece of paper, sheet of sticky back plastic if you've got any bastard idea where to find the stuff. Thank you very much, Valerie Singleton. And it ain't going to cost you a dino. See, my information, right, the information I'm about to impart completely free of charge is universal and there for everybody to uncover, should they feel so inclined. Right, to tell you the truth, I've never met anybody with such an inclination, which is really a little bit sad and pathetic, if you ask me. Because one doesn't have to be particularly clever to work it out. One just needs basic maths and a healthy interest in taking responsibility for one's own life. So when I tell you what I'm going to tell you, don't go moaning about how you wasted all the years because no one told you the facts before now. You should have worked it out for yourself.
Yeah, I put this on to watch again before we had this conversation, even though I just watched it. And my wife was in the room. I said, do you mind? And she's like, watch whatever you want. And I started it. And immediately I thought, oh, I don't think she's going to be into this at all. But this movie is so strange that it won her over because she just kept going, this is a really weird movie. And considering the things that I've shown my wife movie-wise, that says a lot. And then after Kayak Girl, we flash to, it says 2 years before.
Yeah.
2 years before. We see a guy sleeping with dogs. Ethan Hawke is in this movie playing a famous artist as well. That was probably shot during Blade, I'm guessing.
So now you've gone from what looks like the set of a sitcom. Like after Kayak Girl, you expected like Chrissy and Jack and, for the Three's Company people or the cast of Friends, to what now you now think is going to be some sort of dystopian office film.
Yeah. Yes.
I think it's, I kept expecting remember the two guys in Cap was saying, they were like, we like it here. It's like, don't you think it's a horrible hell from which the only escape is madness? Well, yeah, I expected them to show up.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, I'm sort of now really on board.
Yeah. So you never find out, just so people don't think we're not saying the part, but you never find out what he does. That he's called an artist.
It's a widget. It's like how to succeed in business without really trying. And I think the guy was grabbing from a lot of old Hollywood films. Mm-hmm. And one of them, I think, was how to succeed in business without really trying. Yeah, it's a widget. You never find out what his big idea was.
Yeah. We see rapidly his rise to fame. He's in Japan. He's with his mates. There's like all this, it seems very Danny Boyle-esque sort of stuff happening in this.
You jumped over the dogs humping.
Oh, yes. Sorry. There was some certain parts in here where I was like, Rodney's going to talk about this part.
I did because I kind of wanted more weird stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think at some point a producer began to step in. I think this is a very personal movie. The weird semi-anime dogs humping is there for maybe 3/4 of a second. It's blink and you'll miss it. And I think that was the way they sold it. And he's like, I think he was like, I want 4 seconds of dog humping.
It's really aggressive too.
Yeah, I'll give you half a second, 3/4 of a second. But at this point I thought, oh, it's just going to be like horrifying stuff like that popping out. But no. That kind of just goes away. Yeah.
Yeah. And that Yeah, that whole scene. So he's
We're
meeting.
gonna have so much trouble explaining this movie.
Or no, it's really a challenge. So in that part, the Max Beasley character is talking to someone
Yes.
who clearly is of power, and so when it cuts rapidly to the dogs, like one dog viciously having sex with the other dog, I was like,
Yeah.
oh well, this is like a business deal. I get this. Like he's gonna get taken care of by this. This is, And then we get one of my favorite cameos in the film, Udo Kier as the photographer.
Udo Kerr is,
Yeah.
I have it up here, right? Because I was so happy to see Udo.
Yeah.
And I thought, because I know you occasionally play games with the guests, so I thought maybe I'll luck out and the game will be, you give me a line from an Udo Kerr movie, and I will guess. I've heard so many stories about Udo at like conventions, like horror movie conventions over there, none of which I can legally tell without being sued off the planet. But I'm like, at what point does somebody go, you know what we should do? Bring in Udo Kerr.
Yeah, yeah.
We've had the humping dogs. Udo will settle this.
He's welcome to me in any film. I always enjoy Udo. He's just briefly in this. That's it. It's just...
And he's got like a girdle on.
Yes. He takes his shirt off. He's got a girdle. It's really amazing. We get a lot of slow motion footage in this film, and it's like overlaid with like aggressive banging techno from like left field. Lots of rapid cuts. It's very much, like we've said, it's a product of the 90s. It's
90s,
really,
yes.
I love these movies that are very like, it's kind of, when movies, I don't want to badmouth directors, but if you always set something in the 60s and 70s, it never looks of its time. It's a real safe bet. But when you make something that's like that moment, 20 years later, you're going to look at it and be like, well, it's very much that moment. But also, that's nice to have that flavor, I think. It's good to see something that was someone pushing everything that they could at that time.
And for that, if you have a soundtrack from that, I mean, the soundtrack fixes you in the place and time.
Yep.
So if you were alive then, a lot of times when you're seeing something that's made, like you're saying, during the 60s or 70s, and they're playing a song on the radio from 1973, it was the 70s, and then here's a song from 1979, and it never lines up. It never, they got the music right on this one.
Yeah, and also, like I was saying about your show, the soundtrack is deep cuts. Like there's some left field stuff that you would have heard, but also like Spacer is on here that people wouldn't have known. The Amon Tobin track, The Last Minute.
Yes.
Bogdan Rosinski, it's like really crazy. The Luke Vibert BJ Cole song Fly Hawaii was like, there's a lot of stuff that's on there that's like not, it's not just Crystal Method and the Sneaker Pimps or something.
Yeah.
It's like
the Dust Brothers. I got it.
Yeah, you get it. But it really works. In the next scene, there's a rave scene, and he's dancing, and everyone cares that he's there.
Here's the thing. In my notes, this is what it says. Oh, it's a club from Blade. And I didn't know it was the director from Blade.
Yes.
And I call it the club from Blade because I have a friend named Ken. And every time we go to a club in LA, he goes, oh, great, we got to go to the club from Blade. Everybody wears black. Everybody wants to kill their parents. And my friend Ken, there's a film called Street Trash. I mean, you probably see it. Yeah. And there's a gentleman who implodes into a toilet.
Yeah.
The actor didn't want to play the part. So my friend Ken was a 19-year-old PA on the film. He said, I'll do it. So Ken implodes into the toilet. Wow. So I am always like, Ken, you have no right to make an aesthetic decision. You imploded into a toilet in Street Trash. He was like that, and then eventually took him out to Bar Sinister in LA, which he loved. I thought, oh, great, it's the club from Blade, not knowing that the guy's involvement in that film. I've never seen Blade, oddly enough. The only thing I know about Blade 2 from Patton Oswalt, often talking about it and how bad it was. But yeah, I know one of these days I'll get around to seeing Blade.
Yeah, I mean, or not, whatever. I saw it in the theater back in the day. I don't own it, but I've seen.
Well, Wesley Snipes does my taxes, so I guess
good, but you're fine then.
Yeah, they're fine. I'll be okay.
Then, oh man, so it's so hard not to skip over things in this film.
I know. I look at the thing like, oh nah.
Yeah. So they go through the rave scene. She's approached by a nurse in latex who takes him into the back party, which is a secret medical party.
If they're shooting the cover for Angel Smith's Croc House there, that's the only thing. And this is what people think that the after party, the back
Right.
secret party room looks like.
Yes.
And occasionally you go to a club and there'll be like a BDSM room, and
Yeah.
but it's nothing like this. This is actual surgery going on.
Yes.
And people always think, oh, it's exciting. No, it's just usually like a much more sedate, if you can get back there. I never can. But these are the stories I've heard. I can't believe that this exists. And again, it made me at that point. I'm like, I love this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so. Again, like I said, deep cuts on the soundtrack. These are deep cut fetishes. Like, these are very specific apparati that they're wearing and tubes going to different places.
Somebody's watching going, this is so true to my life.
Yes.
I have been in this back room so many times.
Yeah. It's wild. In this sequence, there's also a guy doing raga rapping over the music. And,
yes. Purposely bad. Yes.
Yeah, it's really, his name is DJ Banana, which I found.
Yes.
Okay, it's just time to talk about what happened. So DJ, but it's so hard.
Your face.
So DJ Banana is interrupted by the man who we refer to as the crooner, I think often.
Or Violent Tom Jones.
Yes, yeah.
But we find out his name. We do find out his name later on. Yeah.
Yeah, and he headbutts the DJ, pulls him over there, and he goes away. And you think, like, okay, I get the vibe of this movie. It's just like kind of like a crime kind of thing. And then he starts singing Frank Sinatra.
I've got you under my skin. I have got you deep in the heart of me. So deep in my heart that you're really a part of me.
Yes. I've got you under my skin, which is appropriate for the club. And in my notes at this point, I just have, is this what Brian Ferry does on his off hours? And, like, that is where my brain is at this point in the movie.
Yeah.
My brain is just kind of checked out and gone for a little walk. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're watching this person do Frank Sinatra, and it's a cappella at first, and the music does come in, but he's surrounded by all the people in their medical fetish outfits. And it's so bizarre and surreal looking. And my wife had looked up from her laptop at this point, because you kind of have to. You're just like, what is happening right now?
You can't look away. No. It's like a traffic accident.
Yes. And then at one point, he puts the microphone in a woman's vagina. And then he comes back and gets it later on to finish the song. I was like, how did I forget this part was in the movie?
I mean, there had to be a pitch meeting at one point, and I think that's the point that really sold it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, can we turn it into a ride at Disney? Oh, definitely. Puts a microphone in a woman's vagina. Yeah.
It's just such a wild scene. And so the song ends right before the song. I'm sorry, they ask what's behind a door, and they're like, oh, you don't want to know what's behind the door. So now they go and open the door. They're gonna just show it to us, not make us wait till the end of the movie. And it's a fisting room, and my wife turns to me and she goes, oh, they have a fisting room.
Which was a rumor. It even turned up in the book of Stephen King's It, that people used to say about gay clubs, that there was that there was a fisting room. Of course, no. I know many wild perverts, and none of them have ever seen a fisting room. But this is what we need to talk about.
Okay. Because
in the credits, we find out the name of one of the characters, and he is called Floyd the Fisty. The credits for me, I thought that they bring in Lloyd Kaufman from Troma just to do the credits. The credits are amazing. There's somebody listed as bitchy trendsetter. So I like that one a lot. Yeah.
Oh my God. And it really lingers on the scene.
Yeah,
so if
it does. Yes. It doesn't shy away. No.
That's another part where I was like, oh, Rodney and I are going to talk about this part.
Yes.
He then goes outside and he's saying that he can affect electrical fields. He's so special that he can make lights flicker.
And I've known people that believe that somebody I knew said that they'd seen somebody walk underneath streetlights, and the streetlights were going out as she walked past, like, almost like an old 1940s film. I've never seen anyone do it, but I did see somebody turn off a streetlight by running into it with his head.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That'll work too.
And then it's over for him already. His rise to fame is gone. You get one fetish club and that's it. So
and in my notes it just says Hubris, the movie, which I could have called it.
Yes. He goes back to the club. Nobody cares that he's dancing. It's like this movie moves really fast. And then he goes to find the medical people, and they're not there either. So then,
So sad.
then he meets Emma, who's just a lady on the street who says it must be terrible to lay such a big brown trout. And he's like,
Yes. Which is sentimental for this movie. I don't know when it happens in it, but there's that. I don't know if I'm ahead of myself here in my notes, but there's the scene in the magazine store when he goes to the.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that for sure.
Okay, get to that because we got to talk about that.
Yes.
Really.
So Emma and Max Beasley's, I forget his character. What's his character's name? The
I
lead?
forget. I don't even have it in my notes.
I don't have it either.
Because he's such an everyman.
Oh,
He's such a
Billy.
Yeah.
Billy. That's
Yeah,
his
Billy, yeah.
name. Billy. Okay. So Emma and Billy go to a diner. Billy reflects on what if you wasted your life. Then he goes to a shop and looks at some porn mags. And
Yes.
and a man says, "You know what?
May I?
Yeah, please."
Man says, when you shoot your beans, think of me.
When you shoot your beans, think of me.
And I thought, how's Hallmark missed the opportunity to put this in a card? Like, I want a card from my wife that says, to my loving husband on our 30th anniversary, when you shoot your beans, think of me. Were there rewrites on that? Was that the first thing that came to his mind? Did this happen to him? Did somebody walk up to him? That's one of those things where you pause it and you're like, I need a moment. I need to just get a breath in here. Yeah.
Because that guy, what's his name in the credits? Beans guy?
I don't know. You know what? I don't. The credits were just filled with so much goodness.
Yes.
I should go back and just see the credits again. They might have just given him a nondescript, magazine man. No, they were actually very accurate.
Yeah.
No, kayak girl, yeah. Beans man, Beans boy.
It's his only line, and I hope he's not in anything ever after that. Just one performance where he says that line.
How has that not been sampled? I'm sampling that and putting that in the
yes.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Oh,
yeah.
God, thank you. Oh, my gosh. And then he's robbed by the owner of a shop. The only time I've seen that in a movie.
Yes.
He then takes the train, gives money to a guy, and then another guy comes along who is malformed, and
Yes.
and he gives him the porno mag, and then asks him how he masturbates, essentially. And the guy's like, I'm very creative or something like that. I was just like, what is happening? What is
But
this?
if you were really engrossed in this film, really embedded in it, really, this is a question you would probably be asking in your head.
Sure.
I wasn't, because I'm still in many ways an outsider looking in, but there are people whom are watching this film and going, yeah, it's pretty much my day. Like, I wondered the same thing. Yeah.
Someone made a movie about my life.
Yeah.
He then talks art with his friend. This crew of dudes is interesting, but it's like this movie is not concerned with a lot. It just moves so quickly through stuff. It's just like
his rise is like the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
And we're skipping over stuff like the Zoolander house, where he's got the like the male models from Zoolander that he hangs out with. People, we are skipping over so much. We have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's there's like montage scenes that we could like pick apart forever, but there's just so many images and things crammed together that it's just like, oh, nope, sorry, people.
It's so freaking insane.
Yes.
But yeah, so to just grab a snippet of it is just like meditating, trying to quiet your mind and just focus on your thumbs for a few seconds. Yeah. Another thought will crowd in.
Yeah, because then we get this voice that's like a female voice, and we're staring at a mirror in like a bedroom. And I'm like, what is this voiceover? It's on the soundtrack. And I'm like, what?
that the question, and we'll get to that later on, is there or isn't there payoff with the voiceover? There kind of is, but it's not what you're expecting. No.
It's so wild.
Yeah.
And then Billy tries to bounce back, but nobody's into his new idea that we don't even get to know if we're into it because they don't tell us the idea. And
it's a widget. Yeah.
It's a widget. And then he starts spiraling. He says that he worked 10 years to get here, but where is that? Which I thought, there's lots of little like poignant phrases in this movie that I enjoy. His lady says, you're so far up your ass and you have no experience, where I was like, oh man, wow, that is...
It's just, that's a harsh, and I think that's the conversation in a very sterile restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets even weirder. Yeah,
the setting of it. He passes out in a club hallway, then gets booted out and gets mugged, and then the mugger gives him cash back for the cab.
For a cab, he's like, and the other mugger yells at him, "You've got to stop doing that."
Yes.
And this movie has the best stereotypes in it because he does get a black cab. Now, they're called black cabs. So the people that used to drive them were always white, and they were always very South London. They were, these are the people who voted for Brexit.
Got
So
it.
we get racist black cab
Oh
drivers.
my gosh, this
Yes.
guy.
This is don't sample this for anything, people. Yeah,
It's on the soundtrack.
oh dear God.
Yeah, I know.
How does that guy get on the sound?
It's so crazy.
Oh my head.
Yeah, Taxi Ride, track 5. It's a lot. It's very racist, and then he pukes all over him, and they crash the cab.
The vomit motif.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my God. The projectile vomit is fantastic.
And then I didn't understand what was happening here. So then they're in this weird bathroom where
Yes.
there's like gay skinheads having sex in a stall.
Yeah.
But like she's there with clothes. What is this? What is
She ran out because he smelled of vomit.
right?
And she runs into him and she's like, well, not only are you on the bottom now, but you smell like vomit.
Yeah.
And so in order to get cleaned up, he goes to this bathroom. And I think in a way it was showing that even though people are having bathroom sex, which, it was a thing that, was a lot of people say that was ruined by laws and, decriminalizing it. But I just know people go, I used to really enjoy bathroom sex. Yeah, I think it's showing that he's fallen lower than people having bathroom sex. Right? I don't know. Yeah. But she brings him some new clothes and he's, appreciative.
Yeah. And then she introduces him to the underground. And this is interesting because up until this point, it's been this chaotic sort of soundtrack. And then in this part, it's really lovely lit. There's classical music. The score becomes classical. It's very, I don't know, Baroque. It's just really interesting. And then they go to a theater. It's just, at this point in the movie, I was like, what is happening here?
It turns into Oliver Twist.
Yeah.
So so far it's gone from a sitcom to a dystopian corporate nightmare. I don't even know what to say about the club scene, MTV on PCP. And then it becomes Oliver Twist, so much so that one of the orphans says, may I have some more, sir?
Yeah.
And there's definitely a Fagin character.
Yeah.
And this movie does hit you over the head with things. Yeah. So they have to make sure, I think that kid says that, so you have to make sure, all right, this is the Oliver Twist part.
Right.
And this is clear. If he had an owl somewhere, it might have driven it home more, but yeah. The movie does want you to understand what's going on, yeah.
And the next thing that happens is a drum and bass robbery where they rob from the guy that robbed him at the store. And it's like so crazy. It's so...
And for some reason, they have like a James Bond van.
Yeah.
They have a van where the license plate number flips over, as if they would pull over the van full of drugged up heroin orphans, which is what these are.
Yes.
And then they would say, oh, wait, the license plate doesn't match to the one the witness gave us. Clearly can't be them. Yeah, it's very strange.
And in this scene, there's one kid looking at a porno mag and a kid that's like way younger than him being like, you're too young for that. And then the kid says, I'm going to shoot blood over these.
It's Oliver Twist meets Fight Club at this point. It's just like, and you keep wondering, like, what other line can they throw at us? Yeah.
And then it cuts to the underground rave party. We see the main dude who opens up his metal box and gives all the children drugs.
Yes.
Don't see that in movies every day.
It's the dark side of Willy Wonka. I think it's part of like, what else can Willy Wonka, the Candyman? Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it says a year later, and they're robbing a corpse bracelet. He's got way more piercings. Kids tell a story of a man shooting junk into his testicles. That's another...
Which is a story I used to hear when I was young.
I saw a plonker once inject himself in the balls. He'd done every other place in his body. The veins in his balls were the only veins he had left. Now, he was so far gone, this plonker hit an artery, and there's no lie. His right bollocks were up as big as a football. I'm telling you, it was this big. I saw it with my own eyes. He was like I never fucking met him for a bollock.
What happened to him?
They sliced his ball open to let the pressure out, but it got all infected. And he just couldn't be bothered to fight with it. So he died.
Oh, whoa.
That's like a universal sort of thing where somebody would tell the story of the guy who would shoot heroin into his balls and then one ball would explode. But I think these children bring a certain warmth to it. Like an old Andy Williams special. I'm going to redo it with like snow falling.
Yes. Well, yeah. And then the crooner returns with his friends.
Yes.
I love this scene. He's got a sledgehammer. They have Uzis.
Yes.
And what follows is complete chaos and child murder.
The thing is, okay, we get to find out the crooner's name.
Oh, yeah.
And the way we find it out is, again, not the most subtle movie. We're not really ruining anything for you.
Right.
Takes the sledgehammer, bursts someone's head open, looks at the camera and says, now you know why they call me Percy. So at this point, you probably get, oh, Percy Sledge. But then he sings, when a man loves a woman, to drive it home, in case you didn't get it. And later on, they will come back and make sure if you didn't go, oh, Percy Sledge, you will. So.
And then we also, I forgot to mention that the Emma has a bag that has a creature in it
Yes.
in the diner. And in this wild section of the film, it leaps out of the bag and onto Percy, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, you're wondering what it is. Like, at first I thought it might be like Belial from Basket Case.
Yeah.
Like, maybe she has, or maybe this is the model. Maybe this is what's left of the model and stuff. But no. And I thought, well, maybe that relates to the humping dogs in the beginning. No, it's just some mutated dog because apparently they had a bunch of ideas from a bunch of different movies, or some props might have been left over. I cannot explain this.
Yeah, it's a giant fleshy puppety thing. It's like a rat dog. I don't know, but it's like it doesn't exist anywhere in the movie except for this part. And I was just like, of course, yeah, that's what needs to happen.
One and done. There it is. That's a scene and it's moved on.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Someone gets killed by a frying pan in this scene. I also made note of that. It's just really, really wild. But most importantly, Billy and Emma escape with a huge drug score. And then I forget that this part of the film ever exists anytime I watch it because I think the movie's over. No, it's not. He starts to obsess over time again, and they sort of go from place to place just getting
They have
high.
that lovely shot of what really doesn't exist in London and kind of used to exist here in Philly, which were the old sort of gabled houses.
Oh,
We
yeah.
still have a few of them, but you used to be able to go out on somebody's roof back when rents were cheap, have some beers, and you would look out over what looked like 19th century London. Most of that's gone here, and most of that's gone in London. But that's one thing I miss, that sort of the rooftop scene in London. And I think that's recreated with a miniature, and it's heartbreaking to see it. I used to love that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. He storms into the bad dude's office from the beginning that had the humping dogs. He's got these crazy notes he's scribbled on paper, and none of it makes sense to anyone. And he says that they're slaves to public opinion, and fuck the public. He shoots heroin, and then tries to pitch to them again.
Speech, though, when he's in there from the next big thing.
Yeah.
And he talks about how, he's like, well, the public, you decide if your art's crap, or the public gets to decide whether you have a career or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a nice little nod, particularly coming off. I don't know if did he make this after League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
Before. League ended everything for him and Sean Connery. That's how bad that movie was.
Yeah, that movie, just everybody involved with that just went to live in hiding somewhere, changed their names. Yeah.
Yeah. I was reading that Sean Connery only did League of Extraordinary Gentlemen because he was supposed to be Sauron in the Lord of the Rings movies.
Or Gandalf. I think they offered him Gandalf.
Yeah, and they were going to give him, his pay was going to be 13% of the gross take. And he didn't do it. And he regretted it so much that he was like, I'll do League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That was
it's like Rick Wakeman with The Burning. Rick Wakeman did the soundtrack for The Burning.
Yeah.
And I think he's like, just buy me a cape.
Yeah.
I don't need that. Yeah. I don't need any profits on. And it wound up being, oddly enough, a very popular drive-in movie. Yeah.
Oh, well, it doesn't work out for him. So they sell the drugs for $10,000 so he can get tickets to Greenland. He leaves town in a limo as the lights dim and Aphex Twin's On plays. And it might be one of my favorite endings. It's just like, it fits so well. It's so cozy for me in the late 90s. And then that's it. Like,
Well, we do get a call back.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, after there is much in the way that the Avengers ended. There is a post-credit scene where you find out the next big thing is going to be Percy Sledge. In fact, they even say like Mr. Sledge, so that people who hadn't gone, oh, Percy Sledge, will go, oh, Percy Sledge.
Yeah.
It's a public service.
Yes. Yeah. It's crazy. It's a wild ending. The credits are wild. The post-credit is wild. I kept thinking, like, is it just going to keep going? Like,
it should have been a series.
Yeah.
In fact, Netflix would pick it up now. In my notes, I went and did research after this.
Yes, please.
And I found out that Stephen Norrington, the director,
Yeah.
had worked on and maybe even worn a costume for Return to Oz, the
Yeah.
film with the Wheelers and everything. And I thought, this is what happened. Something struck him on the head during Return to Oz. Maybe that big Jack Pumpkinhead or something, and he was never quite the same.
Yeah.
And his world is Return to Oz. The stuff that would make sense in Return to Oz would make sense in this world, like the dog jumping out of the bag.
Mhm.
That's the best I can do. As the as far as theories go, that's all I got.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. It's a very, I don't know. It does feel very of the 90s. It feels very like definitely Danny Boyle influence
Yeah,
because of Train
Yeah,
Spotting
he's
and that
showing
kind
up
of
at
stuff.
like Heathrow dressed like a bum. You do that today, and you're in the glass box for the. I mean, Heathrow is always kind of rough with the people with the machine guns guarding it. But I was just like, I just saw like it's made in 2000, so
Mhm.
a year later the entire world would change.
Mhm.
But it has that great 2000 look, 2000 movie look where everybody either lives in a penthouse or they're a chud.
Yeah.
Capitalistic humanoid underground dweller.
Yeah.
That is the only strata of society. So at least they saw where the world was going. It's a very odd film, and like I say, you could have only made it at that time. After
Mhm.
that, everything has changed, and but it's just I'm glad it exists.
Mhm.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who this movie is for.
Uh,
That's my notes too. Like, who is this movie for? Who is it?
It's also interesting in that like his highs are very quick and then
Mhm.
the lows are low but like it's not unpleasant to watch because the movie just moves at such a tempo that you're like, "Oh yeah, it sucks that he puked or whatever," but it just keeps going. So like when I think about the overall vibe of the movie, it's also confusing because I'm like, do I like this? Because I do, but
Yeah.
then I'm like,
Mhm.
why do I like this? And why do I have to own it? And like,
That's what I'm like. Like, who would I recommend it to? I'm not quite sure.
yeah.
I recommend a lot of stuff, but people later get back to me and they're angry. They
Oh
are,
yeah.
like, I'm going to burn your house down for recommending that. And yeah, so that's I don't know. I don't know. When is somebody going to say, hey, you know anything from like the late 90s, early 2000s that was
Yeah.
clearly written by someone on drugs who then disappeared and doesn't. I like that it adds to his legend that he doesn't do interviews.
Oh
He's
yeah.
disappeared.
I like
Yeah,
that I just have to wrestle with the weird media formats that he decided to like do this film with and I'll never know because he just won't talk to people about it.
and you're saying he did League of Extraordinary Gentlemen after this.
Yeah.
'Cause you would think that okay, well he based this on okay he done Blade
Right.
and then League of Extraordinary Gentlemen comes and he's out on his out of Hollywood or whatever. But no, this is like he's predicting his fall. It's like the Coil album.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where Sleazy kind of predicts his own death. It's oh
Yeah.
my god,
It's
dear,
dark.
yeah, it's really he's predicting that he's going to fall from grace. And like, oh, that's like well, we never did explain, by the way, the well, it's a lot of stuff for
Yeah,
probably,
so
but the
much.
the voiceover, the model. I don't know if she was one of the models because she talks about going to Germany for a big shoot in
Right.
the scene with Udo Kier. They never quite explain that. Sometimes you think, oh, it's going to be his new girlfriend who was actually a ballerina.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes because they're showing her place when they're doing the model
Mhm.
voiceover. But no, it just turns out to be another random next big thing.
Yeah, she wasn't Kayak Girl, right?
No, she wasn't Kayak Girl.
Yeah.
No, no.
We
No,
don't even...
Kayak Girl's her own thing. You can't bring somebody in for Kayak Girl's kind of part you got to commit to. You've got to wake up every morning for like 6 months and be Kayak Girl. You got to carry that kayak with you on the subway.
Yeah.
You've got to, if your friend is, in the emergency room when you're waiting, you got to have the kayak. And somebody says kayaking accident, you say no, I'm Kayak Girl. No, she wasn't. It was just so odd. Yeah, his girlfriend, druggy girlfriend, just goes off to be a druggie.
Yeah.
She has the drugs. He chucks the One Ring into the volcano and goes to Greenland, not Iceland.
Right.
They point that out. Yeah.
It's
My head hurts.
yes, that's the side effect of the last minute. Anyone that doesn't want to buy this DVD, it's not on Blu-ray, you can find it on YouTube to see the film, and you should. Hopefully you did before you heard we gave away all the weird stuff, because when you
Yeah.
see it not knowing it, it's quite a ride.
Yeah, I think you can still see it not knowing it. I would see it knowing what we said just to see that we were right.
Yeah.
Because that's going to freak you out too. Because it sounds like, it sounds like we smoked a bowl and made up a movie. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Or just minds and made up a movie. We did not make any of this up. This really exists in a movie, and it's on YouTube. I guess as part of a public agreement, with law enforcement somewhere that somebody had to sign. Like, you got to do community service. Put the movie up on YouTube. People can watch it for free. All right,
Okay, we'll do it. Well, there you have it. That's the last minute. Rodney, thank you for returning.
Thank you so much.
As always, this has been VHS Presents New Releases and Late Returns.